What up, guys and gals? Um, I wanted to make, well, actually, to be honest, I did not want to make any video, podcast, article, pamphlet, etc. on this. I wish there was more of an education on this topic that I'm about to talk about so that I wouldn't have to. Essentially, Venezuela is the tip of the spear when it comes to fighting against U.S. imperialism in South America. Now, I got my notes over here that just flipped over, and I just wanted to make sure that I educated the socialists out there as much as possible as to the developments that are happening right now in Venezuela. So I don't know if you guys had heard, but Nicolas Maduro was there was an assassination attempt in on August 4th. So that being said, that really sped up the revolution in a weird way. Like they were already going through an economic revolution, and it really just kicked things in line. So one thing that in essence, the revolution has been going on in Venezuela since the president Hugo Chavez in '98 started really pushing a lot of reforms, pushed a new constitution, guaranteed rights to the citizens, um, started housing projects, started healthcare, free education. Basically, what a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters right now are pushing. Um, so, all that being said, I wanted to get into like the meat of why I'm making this video. So, the reason I'm making this video is the Venezuelan economy has been under an economic attack. The way the U.S. and a lot of its financial institutions attack um, economies of, you know, developing countries, or what's known as third world or second world, I guess, countries is flight capital. In brief, what that is, um, most currencies are pegged to the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar, for example, if you go to any country, let's say in South America, Mexico, there's the dollar and how many pesos a dollar equals. So in other words, that economy is pegged to the dollar. So let's say it's 10 pesos per dollar. Um, Other countries have higher, other countries have lower pegs, but the U.S. dollar is essentially the standard. Back in the day, there was hard commodities that used to back currencies. So in America, we had gold. It was known as the gold standard. And you know what? Maybe I should research a little bit more so I don't get like too nerdy into the stuff. But basically, this is why it's important to write notes. But in essence, there was something called the Bretton Woods Agreement. The Bretton Woods Agreement established the gold standard. The gold standard was okay, how much a dollar, in essence, equaled, how much in relation to an ounce of gold. Um, so during the Vietnam War, Nixon eliminated that gold standard in something that was dubbed guns and butter, right? And in essence, he did away with the gold standard, and the U.S. dollar was pushed as the main commodity. I guess it was commodified into a peg. So the U.S. So instead of getting gold into their reserves, a lot of countries started getting dollars into their reserves. China has a billions of dollars in reserve right now. Actually, trillions because they've loaned us a bunch of money. But that being said, so there really wasn't any way that third world or developing countries could combat the dollar. So whenever the U.S. wanted to destabilize a country, they would go ahead, send in their intelligence agencies, their NGOs. Most famously, the National Endowment for Democracy, obviously the CIA, the DIA, etc. Um, and they would finance groups to go ahead destabilize the local economies, um, and in essence start the economic war, which would be flight capital, which would be pulling out dollars and initiating a phase of um, inflationary tactics that cause unrest and topple governments. I mean, this is all um, strategies developed and implemented by the U.S. government. They were developed also by Gene Sharp. So we know what their tactics are. And this is why in Venezuela they really haven't been able to destabilize and take over the government how they normally do. Don't forget, in '98, Hugo Chavez came in through a democratically elected campaign. He revolutionized the economy, the constitution, had a coup against him, basically reverted by the people, something that rarely happens. Here, let me get my notes over here. And then, you know, here, let me get into my notes because I tend to um, digress from the point because there's just so much that needs to be said and so much that needs to be covered and why Venezuela is so important for even our movement. Don't forget, Venezuela, when it comes to the socialist movement, number one, Venezuela. Number two, Evo Morales, president of Bolivia. Number three might be Jeremy Corbyn, because Jeremy Corbyn is really pushing some socialist ideas, public housing, talking about a public Facebook. Um, all that is methods to democratize and really equalize the playing field between capital and labor and um, and the people. So quickly, how did Venezuela kill Uncle Sam? Okay, well, Venezuela killed Uncle Sam like this. So you have the dollar being the dominant currency used as a weaponized form against economies of that are developing. So what did Venezuela do? Well, they did multiple things. I guess I could describe them in maybe four steps. And so, step number one is they created a cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency is called the Petro. The Petro is, if you know about cryptocurrencies, if you know about Bitcoin, then you know that basically it's a ledger that allows you to verify every single transaction. It's basically a public ledger that everyone can check. So the first thing they did is they created the Petro and they pegged it to the price of a barrel of oil. In other words, they commodified the the price of a barrel of oil on the international market. So now they have the cryptocurrency tied to uh, international currency. That, so in other words, if the price of a barrel of oil goes down, the petrol goes down. If a price of if the price of a oil barrel goes up, the petrol goes up. So in other words, you got something that's based on an international standard that's being pushed by forces not tied to the economy of Venezuela. That's an important point. So now another thing they did is they went ahead and they took their currency and they started a whole new currency called the Bolivar Soberano, the sovereign Bolivar. What that means is that now this uh, Bolivar is tied to the Petro. 3,600 um, Bolivars equal one Petro. So, and that's basically where the prices are currently as we speak. So, they took they created a peg. One, how did they do that? By creating a cryptocurrency. Two, what did they do with that peg and that cryptocurrency? They tied their new currency to the price of the petrol and the price of a barrel of oil. Okay, so that's the trifecta. Now, what's step number four? Okay, so step number four to strengthen their economy is they have a plan of savings. The plans of savings, they call them lingotes. Lingotes, or what as the president calls them, lingoticos, are gold certificates. So, in other words, what the Venezuelan economy is doing, it's actually reverting back to the commodification of currencies that are now based on the faith of the U.S. government. Okay, the faith in the U.S. government. That currency is only digits on computer screens. The dollar is not backed by anything. The petrol is backed by the price of a barrel of oil. The bolivar is tied to the petrol because 3,600 bolivars equal one petrol. The price of a barrel of oil equals 3,600 bolivars. In other words, like what they did, what the Venezuelan revolution did was it took the game, which is the market. Capitalists are big on the market. They're always talking about the invisible hand, giving tax cuts and all this BS. Okay, so they said, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's take your game. Let's go ahead and okay, what are the rules? Lay them out. Okay, so those are the rules of the game. Cool. Guess what? Let's go ahead and play it like this, like this, like this, and like this. So now, like the U.S. is shitting themselves to the point that um, it's illegal for Americans to buy petros. Okay, the land of the free, right? You might as well go ahead and invest, do this and that. You cannot buy petros. You are limited. So your freedom is limited. Although the story of capitalism is basically capitalism equals freedom. But I'm giving you an example about how you're so free in this capitalist system. You can't even purchase, you can't use your free will, your currency to make a free choice to invest in whatever mechanism of investment that you want. So that right there is BS. So let me get to my notes because I'm already running 14 minutes in and I can see I got thousands of followers and thousands of viewers. Just kidding. I see 0 and 0, but it's okay. Um, going in. All right. It seems like I basically went through most of my notes without having to go through my notes, which is kind of good. In essence, I wanted to make the point that the capitalists were dollarizing the economy. So what the socialists did is they went ahead and commodified the economy. Okay, so it's like a checkmate, motherfuckers. Excuse my French. And yeah, so one, they created a peg. Two, they created a currency. Three, they tied it to the price of oil, which is um, an international economic measurement, right? That it's measurable. And fourth, they're creating a plan of savings, which is tied into these lingotes, which is 1.5 grams of gold, or 2.5 grams of gold. Um, and people can go ahead and purchase those with bolivars, therefore creating fifth an internal economy, right? So, like I said, I wrote my notes. I didn't, but fifth, creating an internal economy from which people can go ahead and use their credits on their Carnet cards, or the bolivars, which are tied into that card, to purchase this investment slash certificate, which is backed now once again sixth by a second commodity, which is the gold. Okay, because gold is gold. I mean, you can talk about the U.S. attacking the currency. You can talk about the U.S. having all their agents block roads, or the impresarios and, all the oligarchs, the bourgeoisie, hoarding away all the meat, all the bread, all the toilet paper, you know what I mean, in their warehouses and all this shit, or people trying to go ahead and go into Venezuela from Colombia to go ahead and steal the cheapest gas in the world and go ahead and take it back to Colombia to sell on the black market. All that shit is over. Okay, all that shit is over with this. Okay, all that exploitation. Now they have an actual price of the real price tied into this international peg, tied into the gold, tied into the currency, tied into the Petro, the cryptocurrency, tied into the new currency, and pegged to what the yuan is, what the euro is, what the dollar is, what the ruble is. Like, I mean, this is where the Marxist Leninist socialist revolution is taking it. All right, it's the Marxist Leninist Chavista revolution. Okay, so I know a lot of people don't like that. The same people that got mad at me for posting about how, we shouldn't be honoring John McCain blindly just because he died. Death does not bring you any kind of honor if your entire life was based on murder, imperialism, impoverishment, and racism. Period. I don't give a shit who you are. So, in closing, um, it looks like it's a 6 point plan that I was trying to explain to you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap this up within the 20 minutes because I'm already at 18. So they created a peg, which was the Petro tied to the barrel of oil, tied into their sovereign currency, tied into the savings plan, which is backed by the gold standard. Two commodities, so they're commodifying real free economy that these capitalists want to talk about, taking their game and saying, you know what? Checkmate, mother. So, with that said, Gilbert, aka Supreme, you know how I do. I It's hard for me to hold my tongue sometimes. I understand that, but that's where the revolution is. Socialism forever, hasta la victoria, venceremos. My hats off to Fidel, Che, Marx, Engels, Lenin, Chavez, Maduro, forever. And that's how we do. And I'm out.